war. Just that one word can stir something deep within us: fear, pride, anger, sorrow, maybe even curiosity. For thousands of years, humanity has told stories soaked in blood. From the mythic Trojan War to the all-too-real devastation of World War II, and the silent hum of drones flying over distant lands today, conflict seems inseparable from our species. But have you ever stopped to ask, why? Why do we keep fighting, generation after generation? Are we cursed? Or is there something in our psychology, something ancient, perhaps even necessary, that makes us this way? This isn't just a history lesson or a political rant. It's a journey into the human mind, our tribal instincts, the soul of warfare, and even the ancient philosophies that whispered truths about war long before we had psychology degrees. We're going to explore not only what war does to people, but what people do to justify war. And by the end, you might see conflict in a new light, not as an inevitable fate, but as something we might finally understand and transcend. Stick with me, because what you're about to hear may shift how you think about human nature forever. 1. The evolutionary origins of conflict. War begins not in politics, but in biology. Long before humans built nations or armies, we were hunters, gatherers, and survivors in a hostile world. Evolution favored those who could protect their group, secure territory, and defend scarce resources. In this primal environment, aggression wasn't just useful, it was vital. Fighting wasn't random chaos, it was structured, instinctual, and tied to survival. Evolutionary psychologists argue that this fight instinct is hardwired into our brains, a genetic legacy from a time when hesitation meant death. At the neurological level, this theory holds weight. The amygdala, our brain's fear and aggression center, activates rapidly when we feel threatened. Coupled with the hypothalamus, which controls hormones like adrenaline, the body gets primed for combat almost instantly. But there's another layer. When a person fights and wins, their brain is flooded with dopamine, the reward chemical. In essence, conflict becomes not only necessary, but chemically satisfying. This is part of why combat veterans sometimes report missing war, not because they enjoyed the violence, but because it gave them intense focus, meaning, and camaraderie. Over time, this instinct for survival turned into something more complex. As humans began forming tribes and societies, warfare evolved with us. It became organized, ritualized, even sacred. Fighting wasn't just about survival. It became a way to prove strength, assert dominance, and create unity through shared struggle. In many cultures, war was even seen as a rite of passage. So what started as biology evolved into ideology, and eventually became culture. Us versus them. The tribal mind. Humans are social creatures, but our ability to connect comes with a catch. Psychologist Henri Tajfel's famous experiments on social identity showed that we are deeply wired to form in-groups and out-groups, even based on arbitrary factors like shirt color or team names. This tribal tendency plays a massive role in why war continues. The moment we define a them, we begin the mental process of dehumanizing. They are less trustworthy. They are dangerous. They are not like us. And from there, it's a small leap to justify violence. This tribal thinking has been manipulated for centuries by leaders, propaganda, and fear. During wartime, the enemy is rarely shown as human. They're caricatured, painted as monstrous, savage, or evil. This isn't an accident. It's a psychological strategy. Once a group is seen as a threat to our identity, values, or safety, our empathy shuts down. It becomes not just acceptable but righteous to attack them. We no longer see people, we see threats. That psychological shift is one of war's most dangerous tools. But it's not all darkness. That same tribal instinct is what allows soldiers to bond so deeply, to protect one another under fire, and to find meaning in the chaos of war. Brotherhood, loyalty, and sacrifice are born from this mindset. It's not just hatred of the enemy, it's love for the team, the family, the nation. The psychology of war is a double-edged sword. It divides us, but also unites us in terrifying ways. 3. Philosophy and the justification of war. Long before modern science explained our brains, ancient philosophers were wrestling with the question of why humans fight. Plato, for example, believed that the soul itself was divided into parts: reason, spirit, and desire. When these parts fell into imbalance, internal conflict erupted, and external war was simply a mirror of that inner disorder. In other words, nations go to war because people are at war within themselves. Sun Tzu, the Chinese military strategist, took a different approach. In The Art of War, he emphasized that the best victory is one that requires no battle at all. For him, war was not about destruction, it was about discipline, understanding, and psychological superiority. A wise general wins by knowing both himself and his enemy. This philosophical lens treats war not as chaos, but as an extension of human intention, strategy, and character. Nietzsche brought perhaps the most controversial insight. He saw conflict as necessary for growth. "What does not kill me makes me stronger," he famously said. In Nietzsche's world, struggle, even violent struggle, was part of the process of becoming powerful, authentic, and self-aware. To him, the danger wasn't in fighting, but in avoiding it, becoming soft and spiritless. His words have inspired both artists and soldiers, dictators and dissidents. Whether you agree or not, it's hard to ignore the seductive logic that from the ashes of conflict, something greater might arise. 4. The modern war machine. In the 20th century, war changed forever. No longer just men with swords or muskets, but tanks, bombs, and nuclear fire. Philosopher Herbert Marcuse argued that war had become technological rationality, a machine-like system that made killing more efficient, distant, and cold. War was no longer just about survival or glory. It was about ideology, economic interests, and political power. Humanity had industrialized violence. This created a terrifying paradox. The more advanced our societies became, the more destructive our wars. With drones and AI-controlled weapons, one can now kill with a joystick from miles away. The psychological cost of war is less visible, but not gone. PTSD, moral injury, and civilian trauma still linger. And yet, because the violence is so sanitized, it becomes easier to ignore. We forget that every strategic target was once a neighborhood, a family, a human life. But make no mistake, this modern war machine still feeds on ancient instincts. Tribalism, fear, and identity politics are alive and well. The tools may have evolved, but the mind behind the trigger is the same. And unless we reckon with that mind, our own, we're just creating smarter ways to destroy ourselves. 5. Can we transcend the psychology of war? So, is there hope? Can we escape this cycle of conflict? Carl Jung believed that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. In other words, we must understand our own inner wars if we ever want to stop fighting external ones. Peace is not the absence of war, it's the presence of awareness. Empathy, education, and connection can rewire the tribal brain. The more we interact with people who are different from us, through culture, conversation, and shared humanity, the harder it becomes to dehumanize them. Thinkers like Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. showed that non-violent resistance can be more powerful than bullets. But it requires tremendous strength, not of body, but of spirit. Ultimately, war is a mirror. It shows us what we fear, what we value, and what we're willing to destroy to protect those values. But mirrors can also be used to see ourselves clearly and change. The psychology of war is deeply embedded in who we are, but understanding it might be the first real step toward peace, not as a dream, but as a conscious, deliberate choice. War may be part of our story, but it doesn't have to be our future. If this video made you think differently, even for a moment, then I invite you to join me as we explore more hidden truths about the human experience. Like, subscribe, and share if you want to help others understand the psychology beneath the surface.